Hi, it's Julia Ray, and this is A Deeper Look. I believe the most important stories are the ones deep within us. The stories that make us feel alone, yet connect us when we're brave enough to tell them. Tune in every Wednesday to dive into the deep end together. Thank you so much for tuning in to A Deeper Look. I'm so excited to introduce my guest for the day, Simone De La Rue.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here. For those of you that are not familiar with Body by Simone, Simone is the face and boss behind Body by Simone Fitness Empire and former Broadway dancer. I mean, your resume is so impressive, and I'm so excited to take a deeper look at your journey today. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's fun to be here.
Oh, well, I would love to know, you're Australian,
Yes.
if the listeners can't tell yet. How did you make your way to the States?
To America. I think I'm a gypsy. I was actually born in England, grew up in Australia, lived in Germany, lived in Asia, moved back to London, and then I've been in the States now, I think, 18 years.
Wow.
But I still have an Australian accent, which...
Don't lose it.
Yeah, I know, I'm keeping it. But it's so my son is 5, and he's at preschool. And now he says things, he's got a little American accent. I'm like, oh my gosh. I say water and he's like, water. And I'm like, oh my God. He's losing his little Aussie accent. So, yeah.
So did you come this way by virtue of your dance career?
Yes. I grew up in Australia. I danced for many years. I did my first musical at 18, which was Cats.
Of course.
Yes, of course. And then I kind of traveled around. We did it in Asia, and then I went and did it in Germany. That's why I lived there. And then I actually had a British passport. So it was kind of like, a rite of passage to be able to go and work in London. And that was a dream, to do West End. So I spent 5 years in London, did some shows there. And then I was like, okay, what now? I was kind of building myself up to start to doing some choreography and things like that. But, there was always, I think, a dream to do Broadway. Yeah. And so I came out to America, started off in LA. And then once the green card went through, then I, was on a plane immediately to New York and, auditioning, which it is very challenging and hard. And so I spent, there's probably more time spent auditioning than actually working. But, I remember getting my first Broadway show and just being so thrilled and, ticking that box. And, I think I'd done something like, 16 shows between Australia, the West End and Broadway. And I'd, at that point was ready to hang up my heels, but it was an incredible career. I saw the world, worked with some of my dearest friends still from those experiences. And it was just such a wonderful, experience of different cultures and, doing what you love, who gets to do that all the time?
Yeah. Well, and I know I always think of performers getting to use their passion as their vocation. Mm-hmm. It's such a gift. I think you probably learned so much about physical stamina through that process too. So I have to imagine it was probably a natural leap to being a trainer, but how did you get to that point where you were like, oh, this is now the next step?
Yeah, I think anyone who is a dancer, their body is their tool. So that's like an easy thing to do. I think so many of my friends went into yoga and Pilates. And I remember I was in New York, I was auditioning for different things. And I'd had that aha moment where I was like, it's time to step away and take control of my destiny. And I wanted to be my own boss, so to speak, and not have to audition and have your life in someone else's hands, saying whether you're right for the part or not. And I actually needed to pay the rent as well. So it was one of those things like, well, what can I do? So yeah, I kind of accidentally fell into fitness as a means to an end to pay the rent, but also just felt very natural because I was so in tune with my body and had been dancing since the age of 3. So it just felt right.
Yeah, it's such a natural extension. I mean, I even look at the dancers on Broadway. It's 8 shows a week. It's just exhausting. Yeah. So learning how to use your body, as you said, as your tool and asset, that makes so much sense that you made the leap. Yeah. How did you break through the noise of the fitness industry to become the giant in it that you have been for a while now?
Yeah, it's funny looking back on it now, from this end of it, like a decade over of like 13 years past. But I think I didn't even realize what was happening at the time. I was just getting up every day and doing what I loved and connecting with people. And, part of it was luck by getting a handful of celebrities that endorsed me, which at the time I just kind of thought was normal as well, until now. And I look back and I look at the roster of, my schedule of the names that I had every day back to back, and they would be passing each other in the hallway like, hi. And I just think, oh my God, I had no idea, that was happening at the time, which is probably good because I was living in the present moment and just showing up and just doing the job. But I think it's definitely dedication, hard work, a bit of luck, and just being in the right place at the right time.
I think that's so important to hear, though. Like, I've had a few entrepreneurs on the podcast so far, and I think the overarching theme is that you all just put your head down and did the work and put one foot in front of the other. And yeah, I think there's this obsession with the brass ring these days because we see the highlight reel. And really, it's when you do the work and things just start happening because you are doing the work.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that's really what happened for you.
Absolutely. And if I could think about it, sometimes I wish I could go back to that, because it was, I was working at the front desk. I was the bookkeeper. I was the manager. I was cleaning the toilets. I was, training all day. And I just was so excited and thrilled to be doing something. I have created something that was mine. And I didn't really see it as hard work, but it was so precious and just real and organic and authentic and, raw.
Yeah.
And now after being in it, I feel a little bit tired and tainted and, you're like, oh, someone else has ripped off my choreography, or someone else is you look at things, you're like, oh, that's my old trainer who's now opened her own place. And so you get a bit jaded by the end of it. But initially when you start, it's just so fresh.
Yeah. When there naturally becomes this obsession with what's next, right? Because when you reach a certain level of success, you are thinking about that. So I think that, that early days and stages are precious, as you said, because you don't even realize what's happening and you're not thinking about what's next.
Yeah, you're not even thinking about let me celebrate this moment, because you're like, oh, I've got to pay the rent and I've got to just keep the doors open.
Yeah. Speaking of the doors, I fell in love with you and your workout when I lived in Manhattan.
Yes.
And I lived on 26th Street, so just a few avenues away from your New York City studio. I got so emotional when you closed those doors. Can you talk about what that felt like for you, and also maybe take us back to the beginning of opening a brick and mortar and getting to that point of success and what that felt like?
Yeah. I remember signing the lease for, this big old art gallery. And my hand was shaking, and I didn't want the landlord at the time. He had this big fancy building, meet me on the top floor, overlooking all of the Manhattan, and I just remember my hand was literally shaky, and I was trying to hold it still as I was writing. And in that moment, it was oh my goodness, I can't turn back now. I have to make this work. You sign a 5-year lease. And I had a partner at the time, but it wasn't someone was backing me with, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It was here's a small amount to help you start this. So it was absolutely terrifying, but at the same time I had to make it work, and it was so exciting. And see my first checkbook with the name Body by Simone on it. I was like, wow, I'm really doing this. And I've been to so many talks and have had so many podcasts when people are like, well, what was the business plan, or what was your business model? And I was like, I didn't have one. I just woke up every day and did the work. I just showed up. And for me, it was just the passion. I was just driven so much by the passion and helping people, and that was my business plan. My business plan was, well, I'm just going to make it work. But now when I look back and I just think, how did I have the
gumption?
Yeah. Can I say that?
Yeah, totally.
How did I have that, to do that,
Yeah.
and just think of, and even have the guts to just be like, oh, I'm doing this. But yeah, I had that studio for 11 years, and COVID really hit every business and every industry quite hard, but especially the fitness industry, because that was a place where people were heavy breathing on top of each other and sweating. And so it's and people were wearing masks when they were working out. We were 6 feet apart. So all of a sudden, when you get 25 people in a room, you can get, 6 people in a room. And so it really, it just destroyed my business. And I'm actually still paying landlords off today, like the West Hollywood studio. I'm still paying that landlord off. So it basically came down to a decision. As I was like, the business is going to sink completely, or I could try and hold on to, the digital platform and one physical space, which is the Brentwood studio. And I was living in LA, so it didn't make sense to keep New York because I would be traveling back and forward.
Right.
But I was like, I want to say like losing a child. I mean, that sounds a bit dramatic, but it was my baby, and it was the first thing that I literally painted every, wall, and I slept on a blow-up bed there, and it was heartbreaking. It really was. And this community, everyone was so devastated, and that's another thing when you realize, I really helped. I touched a lot of people's lives when you see the community come out. Everyone was crying. We did like a 4-day celebration of dance parties, and I think that was really moving for me, is just to see how much it affected the local community when we did have to close. But at the same time, I just kept saying, it's not the end of the brand, it's not the end of me, it's just the end of one physical location.
Yeah, that's such an amazing perspective to have, because like it has to be emotional, because that's like an extension of you and a baby probably. It felt like for you. I have to imagine there are a lot of characteristics that you've either sharpened as an entrepreneur or have come in handy that maybe you even feel like you've gained from being a dancer. What would you say those are as you've navigated this journey?
Yeah, I think when you're a dancer and you're on stage, you might be dying and you're sick or whatever in the wings. But then as soon as you get on stage, Dr. Footlights, the lights come up and the razzle dazzle comes on and you perform. And so that's why I always hired professional dancers as my trainers, because there's something about just having to be on and, part of like offering a service, and so I think being able to perform in that way, was a great gift. But then also just learning to try and maybe this was being Australian and having an Australian accent, but just really trying to not take myself seriously and, like connect with people on a deeper look than maybe perhaps other business owners would. And I think it was more about creating an ego-free environment, and that's why I think people loved it, because I didn't want it to be toxic. I wanted it to be a safe space for women to come, all of the staff, and just to be a loving environment, and to people to just be happy, So it's like, even if you leave your worries at the door, come in, and maybe it's deluded that we're going to have this happy moment, because we still have to pick up our bag of worries on the way out. But have that moment where you feel like you're on stage and you're living the dream, and the lights are on you, and so I think a big part of being a performer was a huge influence into me being a boss, into me being a teacher and a trainer, and an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that makes so much sense to me. You talk about the ego-free environment, and I find so much joy in your classes, and you're just a ray of sunshine. I just adore you and your method. And I've brought so many non-dancers to your classes who are so afraid to come because they think that it will be, a true dance class, but it's really just a celebration. I think you've said that a few times.
Yeah, just to move your body. I think that's or the idea that we were blessed, I think, to be able to have the joy of dance from a young age. And I understand why people would be intimidated, but it's like trying to help people open up that little section of their heart or their creativity inside them that can just be joyous. And it sounds cheesy, but it's like the exercise is fun and joyous, and you're getting a great workout at the same time, but you're not necessarily thinking about walking on a treadmill or cycling or anything like that. So but to allow people to have that opportunity to feel they can freely express themselves and just be silly, be childlike almost.
Totally. And it's such a release. I think once you get into it too, a lot of my friends that are those non-dancers, they're like, this isn't
too bad.
Yeah,
I
can
had
let
a
go.
Margarita and I went out. Got on the dance floor.
And they end up leaving so much lighter, I think, in their spirit. So it is such a gift, your method. And there is an app that people can access if they're not in Brentwood and can't make it to a class in person. And I've used the app before too, which I just adore. But you've shifted now.
Mm-hmm.
So, much of your method was cardio focused.
Mm-hmm.
But as you've gotten older and you're, approaching menopause,
Mm-hmm.
you've really shifted kind of your focus.
Mm-hmm.
What was the wake-up call for that for you?
Well, I think the whole way through the journey of the business for me was always being authentic and organic to what was happening in my life. So, when I was single and living in New York, as the dance cardio queen, they just wanted to dance all day and lift a 3-pound weight.
Yeah.
And then I, in my late or mid 40s fell pregnant. And so I kind of took all of everybody through the prenatal and then the postnatal experience. And now I'm 49, I'll be 50 this year. And my workouts have had to shift because of my own personal experience of going, I'm in perimenopause right now. And one thing was like, I remember when I did all my prenatal exercises, there wasn't a lot of content out there. Now there's a plethora of it, but before there wasn't. And so I was like, I needed it for myself. So I'm assuming that there would be other women out there that would also need to know a safe way to exercise, before pregnancy, during pregnancy, and after pregnancy. And so now I feel the same thing about perimenopause and menopause because as, educated as I am and, I'm women's fitness expert and I'm very close relationship with my mother and, it still is like perimenopause just kind of crept up on me. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this is what's happening. This is the stage that I'm in. And, absolutely your workouts have to shift because as every year that we age, we lose muscle mass. We have to build and maintain the muscle mass. We worry about our bone density as we lose the estrogen. There's heart disease. There's so many things that we have to focus on, like keeping our hormones steady and level, trying to do steady state cardio as opposed to spiking the cortisol like crazy, which also comes from stress in your life. So there's so many things that was a reflection of what I was going through. And I, as women, I think we go, oh well, if I do cardio 3 times a week and I just eat a salad, I'm going to lose the weight. And perhaps that worked for us in our 20s and 30s, but 40s and 50s, those old habits or the old routines are not working anymore. And so for me, the cardio junkie who's lifting 3-pound weights to now be lifting 10, 12s and 15s is huge. Yeah. And so I want to help educate women that, depending on the time in your life, everything's not cookie cutter. Like you really need to address and do what's right for your body and not go on to TikTok or Instagram and follow somebody who's half your age and try and do, whatever the workout is that they're offering. So now I'm doing a lot more strength and a lot less cardio, which, you would never look at me and say that I carry weight, but for someone who's always been very, very lean because I've been an athlete for so long, all of the symptoms that you experience in perimenopause and menopause, you're putting on weight, not being able to sleep, being lethargic, having mood swings, feeling unmotivated, or, all of the symptoms, strength training really helped with that. So I selfishly have been doing it for myself, and then it's like it's time to share that that knowledge and the journey and make it not so taboo, because that's the other thing about, I was just talking to my best friend, is like the fitness industry, like performing and acting and everything, it's so based on youth, and they get you in when you're young and fabulous and hot and sexy, and they build you up and then they're like, oh, look at this young one's come in, and you get put out to pasture, and the next young one comes up. And I've seen it happen so many times with my clients over the years, and and now it's happening to me, and it's so weird to be in an industry where you would be walking around in a bra top and leggings and doing poses and selfies, showing off your body. And I'm like, well, I don't feel as comfortable doing that. I've done that, right. That's what part of what called Body by Simone was, the body, and I'm like, there's got to be more to this now. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting phase I'm going through, and I'm trying to open up the dialogue and make it a little bit less taboo to talk about.
I think that is of the utmost importance because it is really a taboo topic. I feel like women are afraid to talk about it, and it's something we're all like, it's coming for me. It's there, it's there for all of us. And I like to even hear you say this was an education for you, and you just want to share that, because even the symptoms you're mentioning, I mean, they feel like they could be symptomatic of many other things. And just knowing that this is like a natural process that we're all facing at a certain age. I think I really applaud you for opening up the discussion. And I see your videos and I'm just like, this has got to be so valuable for so many people.
I hope so. A lot of people have reached out. I think when you're, honest and raw and, people resonate with that and connect with that. But yeah, I think we just don't talk about it because everyone thinks, oh, well, if I admit that I'm going through menopause, then I'm old and I've aged,
right,
and I'm not going to be useful anymore. And it's such a, the aging process as women, that's another thing. My skin tone has changed, like so many things. It's like, no, you're desperately trying to hang on to it, especially living in Los Angeles, in this city, where everyone's obsessed with youth and looks. And so I think the more and more people are starting, Halle Berry, Naomi Watts, like more and more people are starting to openly talk about it. I think it's going to be a really safe space for women, and it's going to be inspiring. And I really hope that I feel like this is the start of the movement, and, I hope to be there, on the fitness side of it, just saying that.
Spearheading it.
Yeah. Because the other thing is too, I know I was like terrified to lift weights because, I don't want to bulk up. And that was the thing that I hear women say all the time. And, and I trained so many actresses for movies where they have to bulk up. And it's the hardest thing to do on earth. It's like, 2 to 3 hours of working out a day. It's eating copious amounts of food, like upping that protein intake like you wouldn't believe. Like you're not going to wake up and look like Buff. Incredible Hulk, like that's actually a hard thing to do. So it's also changing the mentality around that strength training, you're not going to walk around, and bulk up overnight. So.
Yeah. And I think, an extension of what you're doing is kind of opening up the dialogue to step away from like the youth obsession. I'm finally seeing so many articles about even just like the obsession with plastic surgery and, and we do live in a city and space and careers where that is the focus.
Is so important.
Yeah. And what that's doing to the mental health of women not in this city and not in these careers because they're seeing those faces and people. And not to say there's anything wrong with choosing that, but it's just, I always think like, what is this doing to our mental health on a broader scale?
Well, social media, full stop. I have a love-hate relationship with that, and I could,
Ditto.
I was saying the other day, like, remember when we started Instagram, and it was like share a picture with your friends and family, and everyone would be like, "Oh, where are you? You're in Paris. This is great." And now it's about like all of this content and reels, and it's just like it's so overwhelming. But when you own a business, that you're tied to this. It's like a marketing tool. But I do worry about the youth. I worry about my son, who's only 5, but in some ways I feel blessed that, I didn't have a girl, because I do worry, particularly for anyone who identifies as female, but, the stresses and pressure on them of like what you're seeing on all this on social media. None of it is real. It's all filtered. It's all showing your highlight of your best life. And there's been so many studies recently saying that it's really affecting people's mental health and depression and loneliness. And so I wonder where we go from here. I really hope that somehow maybe we stop, but I can't see it happening.
I always believe we're in like a pendulum in the universe, and it's swung so far that way that at some point, and I do think voices like yours, that's why it matters what you're doing, because you're helping swing the pendulum back a little bit.
I hope so.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm just as bad. Like it's like it's one of those, that you have to, you have to do it for your business. You have to keep up. It's like the pressure. I feel like on a rat in a, whatever it is.
Treadmill.
Thank you. Like,
hamster wheel.
Hamster wheel. That's it. Just trying to keep up with the madness.
Yeah, it's so hard, and you're right. As a business owner, it's something you have to. You're good. It's something you have to do to keep up with it. Has your mental health ever taken it have you ever run into a toll that it has been taken from being a business owner? And I'm sure like COVID.
Yeah. I've had a rough couple of years, and I'm trying to be open and talk about that too, because I think it's really important to be, you can have a great success in life and, living the dream and have, a big chunk of time where everything just flows organically and it's beautiful and incredible. But we're human, and then we have life experiences that pull us down and traumatic, and I've seemed to have almost lose my business and divorce and COVID all at the same time. So I kind of got hit personally and professionally. And it's been, I've been really struggling to kind of pull myself out of that. And, I'm not the type of person that will get on social media and cry my eyes out and be like, woe is me, poor me.
Right.
But at the same time, I feel like there needs to be some, to be authentic to some point so that people can also know that it's not all roses.
Yeah.
But yeah, COVID has a lot to answer for. I think, my business was booming beforehand, but I do believe that everything is meant to be, and there's always a lesson and there's a reason. So I'm just trying to be open and allow that lesson to come in and see. But I laugh and say I never do things by halves. I'm like one of those people is all or nothing person. Yeah. So I feel like the universe was like, okay, I'm giving to you big. I'm gonna make this is gonna be a huge shift coming, and you're gonna get it all at once. So I definitely feel a little bit more resilient, trying to come out the other side of it.
Yeah, because you were on top of the world. I mean, you were really like the A-lists. We haven't even mentioned them. I can't even there's just the longest list of A-list celebs.
Yeah. When I look back now, I'm just like, oh my God, it's kind of crazy. But at the end of the day, they're just normal people.
Yeah. And you have brought such a gift to their world. What have you found? Because your little one, you said before we started, is approaching kindergarten.
Yes.
And he's such an adorable little kid. You're doing such a great job raising him. How have you found balancing motherhood with being a business owner?
It's been challenging because he's the love of my life, and I didn't have help. I chose to I was going to be present. And when you've come to the studio on a Saturday morning, he's there, and he'll be propped up in the corner. Maybe he's got his iPad, but he's there with me. So my choice was, as a single parent, I wanted him to see that you have to work hard for things in life, and, it's not always about him. And so he comes along and sees mommy work. But it's a juggling act. I have really struggled because I was so obsessed with my work and so focused. I'd have clients saying, come on the private jet, we're going here. I want you to train me in this city, in this country, and I'm working on this film. You've got to come away for 3 months. And beforehand, I could do that. But when you have a child, my decision was that he would always come first. And so the business has really taken a back seat. And he's, to him. But I do feel I wake up days and I'm just juggling all the balls. I don't know how I'm doing it. But at the same time, I wouldn't wish it any other way. And, he's the greatest gift to me, and out of bad circumstances come beautiful things. So I feel that he's definitely the gift.
Did you anticipate the shift that came when you became a mother, or did you have any idea of what it would look like?
No, and I fell pregnant at 43 and had him at 44, and it was natural, which was kind of really a miracle and a blessing. But I think back, I'm so glad that I waited, because I had such a big full career that I don't ever regret anything, and I don't feel like he took away, time away from anything. So I think having him when I did, it was just the right timing, for me. But I never really grew up wanting to have the white dress and be the bride. And I know a lot of my girlfriends had chosen their baby names. And, I'd never really thought about that because I was so obsessed with dance when I was younger. And that's all I wanted to do was dance. I've been very driven and ambitious, I think, my whole life. But then I remember getting to 40 and thinking, oh my goodness, am I going to do this or not? Because, maybe I'm going to miss out. But also I remember being told when I was 26 that I probably wouldn't be able to have children, so I'd taken that pressure off a little bit. And when it happened naturally, it was really just a blessing. So I thought, okay, this little soul is ready to come into my life, and I'm ready for him. And I saw this beautiful meme the other day saying, if your firstborn is a boy, that God, spirit, universe wants you to know what real love is or true love is. Aww. And I was like,
I love seeing you two together because I can see that in your relationship.
Yeah, he's very cute.
And I think it's so great that you are showing him how hard you work.
Yeah, I know. But people are like, do you have a nanny or do you have help? And first of all, I'm like, how much do you think I earn? And secondly, like, no, I've always, whenever I've gone anywhere, he's always come with me. Surprised he would normally be here today.
He's not popping out with Paw Patrol.
He would normally be here, yeah, but he's at preschool, so we're okay.
Well, you mentioned that this has been a huge shift and phase for you, and you're coming out. I think you're coming out of what must have felt like a very heavy time.
Yeah.
What did you turn to get yourself through those hardest days?
Yeah, I think faith, and then I grew up a good girl, Catholic girls' college, but I would never say that I'm a Catholic. Like, I very spiritual, and I believe in light and energy, but there were many days where you just have to have faith in a higher being, whatever that is, and like faith in the lesson that's supposed to be learned in that moment, and coming back to we always are exactly where we're meant to be, and we will be okay, and you think about like what are our problems, and I think about all those people in the world that have far worse off than we are, and I'm complaining about losing a business, like, at least I have a business, so I think there was a lot of gratitude practice of just going back to gratitude of how lucky I am, having faith and belief that there's a reason for this and that I will get through this. And then I think having those friendships and bonds, like very, very close to my mother, and she's a therapist, so I had free therapy there.
Oh, lucky you.
And then having the friendships, I think, where you can, you don't have to have 20 friends, but you could have a handful and like 2 that just know every single secret about you and that you're able to share those things. I think are really important. And then without sounding corny, obviously my son, but like exercise, like that, I joke about it in class, but it is my therapy and has always been my therapy, and a lot of work that I do now is coaching people, because it's like we all, we have trauma and we keep it and we hold it in our bodies, and it comes out with disease and injury and obesity and addictions, and so it's like learning to release that trauma. And yes, you can have a therapist, yes, you can meditate, yes, you can do all these things, but I do believe we have to move that energy and that emotion out of our bodies, and we can do breath work, and we can do all of these wonderful things, but movement, it is a wonderful way to remove trauma out of the body. And so that's why we start off every class with an intention or a moment of stillness to center our thoughts, and then try and just move. So that has always been dance, and exercise has been my therapy.
I was going to ask if movement was something you turned to.
Yes.
I think what you just said is so beautiful. Getting these things physically out of your body is so crucial.
It's a beautiful thing when you think about that, because it's an emotion, it's heavy, and we carry it, as baggage or, the scarring. And then usually we self-medicate, with drugs, sex, booze, gambling, whatever the addictions are. I'm like, well, the worst thing could be addicted to exercise. Not that I'm addicted, but it's like, when you exercise well, you kind of then want to eat well, and then you want to get to sleep, and
it's a domino good effect.
So, but I think it's just, and also, I don't know, as you get older, you just start to learn to show yourself some grace a little bit more, and just go, okay, this is a hard time I'm going through in life, but I'll get through it, and
it'll pass.
Yeah, this too shall pass.
Yeah. Do you find yourself thinking about what's next?
Yes.
Or,
I literally was just having this conversation as I was walking in the door, because I don't know about you, but, I was a dancer for so long. And that's all I knew and all I ever wanted to do. And then that was chapter 1. And then chapter 2 was Body by Simone, and I've done 13 years, and I was obsessed with that. And I'm like, what's chapter 3? And as someone is about to turn 50, do I want to be teaching 5 classes? Do I want to be walking around showing my body off? Like, maybe not, And so do I have the energy to get out the front and inspire and motivate people every day? maybe not. So what is next, you know? I don't know about you. What do you think about that?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And I think when you're, I always say when you're a creative, you want to live this creative life, but then it leaves you in this less stable life, right? Because you're not an accountant. You're not getting up every day doing the same thing. And so I think there is this, it's so hard to live in that space. But I do think that even watching what you're doing now and being so open and honest and starting these conversations that need to be had, I have the faith that what's next will present itself. Yeah.
I think it's the flow, isn't it? But it always seems that when you're in the right place, things flow organically. So, but it also comes back to just being in the present moment. And this is my goal this year, is to just wake up and be here today. Not think about the past and all the woe is me and this happened to me, or not get concerned and worried about the future of what job will I do if I don't do Body by Simone, or where am I going to live, or and just be like, let's be happy today. Like, we're here together having a great conversation, and my brother's visiting, and we're going to go and have lunch, and just being present today is the hardest thing to do.
It is. But isn't that what Simone did 13 years ago?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you built the empire, right? And so I do think that there is this level of release that has to come with showing up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somehow it'll come to us.
I just thought, all right, I'm open. Come on.
We're waiting.
Yeah, I know. But it's once again about talking about just doing the work, isn't it? And there's so many things that you could apply doing the work to. Right. Doing the work in therapy, doing the work on improving yourself, doing the work on showing up every day as a wife, a mother. And by the way, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's so exciting. Showing up and doing the work every day. And choosing, we have a choice every morning to choose to be happy and choose to be positive and choose to, or we could choose to be depressed, and we could choose, I know it's much harder to say, do you choose to be depressed? Not necessarily, but you can choose to make decisions or movements that could help ease that feeling. Yeah,
to help start that domino effect, right? Yeah. And I always think about that because it's very easy for me to get in my head. And, as a creative, I feel like my highs and lows are a freaking roller coaster. But, you do have to make those little decisions to get you into the present where you can really see where it's going to take you. Yeah. And it's hard. That's hard. It's hard, especially as you mentioned, when you have lived a life that you get a little jaded and get a little, well, that didn't work out, but it's worth it. That kind of work is worth it because I think that's when what's next shows up.
And I feel like I'd rather have the highs that I've had, the amazing highs than the not so great lows, rather than just be mediocre. Yeah. So, I think we choose the creative life, and that's what we kind of sign up for. So it is the fun, and you could choose to look at it as exciting. Isn't it exciting? We don't know what we're going to do tomorrow. Yes. We don't know how we're going to pay our mortgage or our rent tomorrow, but no.
But we'll find a way.
We'll find a way. We always do. Yeah. We always do.
It's so true. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to keep following you and seeing what's next for Simone De La Rue.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
If you are loving these conversations, please share with a friend or 5 and leave me a review because I would love to hear your feedback. And if you have an idea for a future guest, head on over to our Instagram @DeeperLookPod and comment who you'd like to get to know on a deeper level. New episodes drop every Wednesday. I'll see you next week on A Deeper Look.